welcome to this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through the industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Linda Ugelow. She is a speaking confidence coach, author, podcast host. Welcome to the show, Linda.
Nice to be here, KJ.
Welcome to the show. You are welcome to India in this online form, Linda. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people will benefit from what we'll be talking about. We'll be talking about how they can empower themselves to speak in public, obviously with your help. So, my first question is, Linda, to understand is that why are some people quite fearful of, speaking in public? What are the factors behind it? And some people are not, even they can lie on stage very confidently and nobody will come to know about it. What is it that they get and others don't? I want to understand, start with that.
This is going to be a very oversimplification, but people who are comfortable speaking in public in front of other people have backgrounds where the people around them were interested in what they had to say, gave them space to speak, where they felt like they were worthy and people were interested in them. People who are uncomfortable speaking have experiences in the past where they were shamed, hurt, rejected, bullied, pressured to perform before they felt ready and comfortable, or there was an overemphasis on being perfect. Like a lot of people who do very, very well in school, and they build this identity about people like them and they're valued because they're perfect. When it comes to speaking, which is very imperfect, they feel like they don't meet their own standard. And so, in fact, they have an inner bully that's waiting and berating them for every perceived imperfection. So these are the elements that I discovered, that the fear of speaking is not, yes, sometimes there are very high stake environments. There are environments where we are being judged and evaluated. But in general, when people are afraid to speak, it could be in their team at work where everybody is very supportive of them. People do want to hear, and yet they are feeling afraid. This is a trigger from the past. It has nothing to do with the present. It has everything to do with things that have not yet been resolved, because at the time it happened, they just coped with it. They didn't get the kind of either mentorship or parenting or teacher support to navigate whatever they felt as a trauma, so that they would feel whole and worthy at the other end of it.
Right. So how can they deal with this? How did you deal with your fear of public speaking, so that this gives them an answer?
Yes, I'm glad you asked, because I was one of those people who had a background of little, maybe not huge traumas, but mini traumas, but they add up and they kind of glom together. And it wasn't until I was in my 50s that I realized that this fear that I had was getting in my way. So I actually was a performer on stage for over 3 decades. I was fine singing with a group. I was fine as a dancer, but to have to introduce a song, that was too much public speaking for me. It was really terrifying. But when I decided to become an online entrepreneur and I went through a coaching program and I wanted to spread my business, I decided, it wasn't that I just decided, but I realized I needed to put myself out there. And so I jumped on the first live streaming platform. It's fun to be on this live streaming platform today. The very first one was Periscope. And all the marketing gurus said, you got to get on daily to build your following. And I thought, okay, I'm going to do this. And it was terrifying. I was hyperventilating. My heart was racing. And I just figured, after a few days, I'll be fine. And I will just manage it. I did deep breathing, meditation, power poses, affirmations, all these things to help me manage my fear. And so the days went on. Every single day I was getting on Periscope. I got to day 75. My heart is still pounding. And I thought, there's something wrong with this advice that just do it and you'll become confident. There's something else happening. And I do have a master's degree in expressive arts therapy, so I have a psychology background. And I thought, okay, I'm going to get rid of this because I can manage it, but I don't want to manage it. I just don't want it to be there. So I closed my eyes and I asked if the fear could talk, what would it say? And what came back was this flood of memories, times that I learned it was dangerous to be the center of attention, the times I was bullied, the times that people made comments to me that made me feel like I wasn't worthy, people weren't interested in what I have to say. And once I realized I had all this stuff from the past, I knew I needed to clear it away. The good part was that with my background, I actually had the tools to do that. I just didn't know that I needed to do that. So I used things maybe people have heard of emotional freedom technique, otherwise known as EFT or tapping. I did journaling. I because my background's in dance, movement therapy. I did some movement work, a lot of forgiveness, and within a week, my fear of speaking was completely gone. The audience became friendly, and when I went on to live stream, it felt when the camera came on, I just felt present and relaxed. And I thought, this feels so much better. And what happened to me is that I felt eager to get to speak again. I felt eager to be in the limelight whenever it was like, even at a party, if it was like I was telling a story, or if it was my turn in a conversation, or if it was an opportunity to be on a podcast or to speak. And it was at that point that I decided I'm going to learn about public speaking because I really didn't have a background in that whatsoever. And it wasn't that I had an urge to, but once I figured out my way of overcoming the fear of speaking, I looked around. I didn't see anyone doing what I was doing. I felt this is important piece of the puzzle. There are so many people afraid of speaking. Yes, we have Toastmasters, but a lot of people go to Toastmasters and they still feel afraid. So, what can I contribute? Maybe I can contribute this for people who are falling through the cracks when they follow that common advice of ignore the fear and do it anyway, or pretend your fear is excitement. And they're thinking, I know the difference between fear and excitement. That doesn't work for me. So I feel like I am providing something for those people who really want to step out, or maybe they need to step out at work, and part speaking in public or giving presentations is part of their job description, or maybe they're avoiding certain jobs because they know they'll have to speak. Those are the people that I want to help.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Linda. And not only you did it for yourself, now you are, helping so many others to do it. So it is very much possible. How can people get started with this? Because everyone have their own strengths and weaknesses. Also, some people may have something related to the past, but what about introverts? Do they have a different way of looking at it, at public speaking? How can they deal with things if they do not have anything related to trauma or anything? Help us with that.
Yes, you know, that's why I brought up the school issue, because I have had clients who are in the C-suite of their companies. They were the valedictorians or at the top of their class. They may have had a supremely wonderful, supportive home life and been well liked at school and never had a teacher who didn't get them. And yet they still have this. And that's why I brought up this perfectionism problem, because they didn't have outside trauma, but they're giving themselves inside trauma and they don't realize it. What I discovered is that there's always a reason. Now, even if they learned to be quiet because it's in the culture, don't talk back to your elders, silence is golden, don't stand out. Even these kinds of messages can, if you're being a good kid and you want to follow the rules, you'll absorb them. And then you get to a place where people are saying, stand out, take center stage, get up to the front of the room. And they're like, inside there's a part of them that believes these other messages and they can't overcome them. So I always say the first step is to examine, where did you decide it was safer to hide? Because as children, we thrive on attention. You know, you think of the kids at the playground saying, look at me, or the toddler taking their first steps. So the question is, where did we learn to trade that free self expression for caution? It could have just been cultural messages, it could be mini traumas. I mean, I try to be a great parent. I have a lot of emotional awareness. I still made mistakes with my child. There are ways that we silence others without meaning to, even with the best of intentions. And my daughter will have to deal with those because they already happened. So whether or not they got resolved because maybe I apologized or maybe I was completely unaware, so it's stuck in her. It's up to her now. And so what I want to say is that regardless of what happened to you or what you were shown or modeled, it could have been modeled for you that everyone I know is very quiet. So I'm quiet too. That's how we are. Well, if you want to speak up at a meeting, you're going to have to question that. So my suggestion is, look at, where did that you trade that free self-expression for caution? What kind of messages did you receive about how okay it is to speak up? And start with those. It may be that you need to rethink or reframe the beliefs that you grew up with. It may be that you have some mini or big traumas that you need to heal in some way. And it doesn't necessarily mean years of therapy. I mean, when I work with clients, I rarely work on this issue beyond 9 or 12 weeks. So it's not like it's long term by any means. But you need to address these things if you don't want to get triggered. Because if you learn your public speaking skills, if you learn how to give a great talk and you do all the right things on stage, you can still be suffering inside. And I have had paid public speakers come to me. They know they're great. Nobody has an inkling that they're anxious, and yet they inside they feel like, their heart is racing, they don't feel grounded, they perform well, but they're not having the experience that they want. And to me, it's like, life is too short, let's have the experience we want. Speaking is our human design. If there's someplace we don't feel comfortable, let's figure out why.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, how do you get started? People started with with speaking confidence as a speaking coach. They come to you, and you said it's not a very long term course. Sometime. So, how do you get? I'm a bit more intrigued by this whole process, because confidence is something which is theirs. Lack of confidence and building confidence is your work. So how do you do that, which they have not been able to do it for many years, at least in terms of public speaking? It's a very tough job.
Yeah. Well, I have a three-part approach. The first part is to reveal and heal. Reveal why your confidence isn't there, because I feel like a child, it has natural confidence. So what are the elements that eroded at that confidence? The things that I was just speaking about. Where have you been hurt, shamed, rejected, pressured to perform, made to believe that mistakes are bad? I mean, all of us have that trauma. That is a trauma, that we feel mistakes are bad when they're not. We know that we need to make mistakes in order to learn, and yet we have this dreadful fear of mistakes. So any of these things need to be addressed so that that is removed. Once we are cleared of these past things that keep us from being in the present, we have more ability to be in the present. So that's one, reveal and heal. Number two is to restore some sense of safety. And as I already spoke about, we can sometimes create an unsafe environment inside our own heads by our self-criticism. So we need to look at, what are the things we are telling ourselves? What are the things we're thinking about? And heal that. I actually don't believe that the inner critic is a natural part of us. I feel it's a wounded part of us. I feel it's the part that is responding to the little injustices we feel on the outside. And, they can be inadvertent and well meaning, but they still feel like injustices to us. And then number three is to rebuild or repattern our habits. So we swap out the ways that we make ourselves small to allow ourselves to take up more space. So that is number one, even in our breathing, the way we breathe. So when you're afraid, you have a breathing pattern. When you're afraid, you have a way of speaking. You might speak too fast, you might mumble, you might speak too softly, your voice might constrict. So all these, the way that we speak and express ourselves, we want to find a new way of being. And once we've gotten rid of or cleared away or healed the traumas, the past, and we've also healed the inner, what's going on in our head, then we are present, because there's nothing that's filtering us or keeping us from building from where we are. And so that's, I guess it's about building the skill set, but it's not just the skill set of knowing what to say, although that feels great. I mean, it feels really good when you know how to handle mistakes, or when you lose your train of thought, or you stumble over your words. You want to know how to do those things, and you want to know how to speak concisely or coherently. But you also want to know how to be grounded and centered and energized and happy to be in conversation, happy to be in front of the camera or on a live stream.
Absolutely, absolutely. And in today's time, uh, every sphere of our life, you have to be in front of camera one way or the other, and
Yes.
and you need to get at least experience in that.
Yes. Yes. It's funny because, when I was growing up, maybe you too, if you wanted to get on camera, it was like being on TV or being in the movies. No, not everybody had this idea of they want to be a camera star, but now everybody needs to be.
Absolutely.
Everybody needs to be on camera practically. Yes.
Absolutely. So there is much to learn about public speaking and overcoming one's fears. So not only about from you right now, but also from your book. You have written "Delight in the Limelight." So exactly, exactly. So what is it? Who have you written this book for? What is it people can learn from the book?
My intention with the book is for people to be guided through a transformation. So through the stories I tell about myself and the clients that I've worked with, for people to have a sense of like, what is it to like go through my past? What kinds of things am I even looking for? So they get to go through that. They get to go through the types of healing processes that I suggest and may also be out there, because the healing processes that I use are a limited um, range of what's available to us. Humans are extremely creative. We're spiritual, we're holistic. I feel like the best kind of healing is a holistic approach, where we come at it in a physical way, an emotional way, an intellectual way, and even a spiritual way. And there are so many different modalities. I only have expertise in a few. So I recommend a few, but I also give suggestions about other ways or other places to look, or even create your own healing, rituals. And then people understand how to handle things that they're afraid about in speaking. Like, what do you do when you make certain mistakes? I do some reframing, because I feel like people have misguided ideas about what it means to be a good speaker and what it requires. And then people learn about ways they can play with their voice and play with their self-expression. And lastly, and very importantly, is how we can prepare ourselves to speak that's beyond just knowing what to say. I feel like, so I have a program called the Speaker Green Room, which I took from the book. It's all in the book, where you can prepare yourself to open up your body, because speaking is a full body experience. People think, oh, it's just thoughts coming out of my head. No, it's not coming out of your head. It requires the muscles in your body. It requires the energy. It requires strength in your abdomen and your intercostal muscles. So the more that you feel like you are in your body and you engage in your body, you can engage your voice. um, so we want to warm up our bodies, we want to warm up our voice, we want to put our heads in the right place for whatever engagement it is. So I feel like journaling is very important. I also feel like it's important to center ourselves. So I spoke earlier about what I did on Periscope, all those things that I did to manage my fear. Once you're over the fear, first of all, they're still good for managing the fear. But once you're over the fear, what it does is it puts you into a state of alignment, of grounded centeredness, so you can actually have a peak experience when you speak. That
Absolutely.
speaking is almost like, I mean, this is going a little bit out there, but it's even almost, I might use the word shamanistic, in the way that we are opening ourselves to let the words come through so that we may be of service, so that we may connect, so that we may communicate something of importance.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Lot to learn from your book and lots to learn from your podcast. Again, Delight in the Limelight. To tell us about your podcast, what do you do there so that people can gain more from you through your podcast?
Yes. So my season 1 of the Delight in the Limelight podcast, it's the same name as my book, is almost like a condensed version of the book. It goes through all the different, the 3 parts of reveal and heal, restore safety, and repattern your habits. So you can listen to that if you're not a reader and you don't have time to listen to a full audiobook, you can go to the Delight in the Limelight podcast and get like a crash course. In season 2, I bring on experts that expand upon. So I'm all about like how I want you to feel when you speak. I bring in experts that talk about what to say. So people who talk about confidence in negotiation or in sales or presenting at your organization. And I've brought in vocal specialists. I brought in a stuntman who teaches high performance. How do you perform when the stakes are high, like you're jumping onto a moving car? And what are you thinking about? So I'll bring in what I think are interesting subject matter experts to fill out other ways that we can feel more confident in our speaking.
Wonderful, wonderful. A lot of people would like to learn lots of things from you about speaking, and to enjoy the limelight. So, what is the best way for them to connect with you, Linda?
I would love to continue the conversation. And the way I suggest doing that is downloading my free checklists of preparation, rituals, and practices so that you can be grounded, centered, and focused when you speak. And you can get that at Linda Ugelow, UGELOW.com/rituals.
Absolutely, absolutely. Be grounded in speaking and take the flight to success. Enjoy.
Thank you
With
so much.
this, with this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.